What is going on, Reid Nation? How are you guys doing? Welcome back to the channel. We're doing more Avengers videos. This is another Endgame. I'm super excited to see Endgame this year. I can finally say it's going to be out this year. Like, I seen Infinity War. I wore my Guardians of the Galaxy shirt. I was highly upset about what happened. But I know that Endgame is going to bring everybody back. My theory about, because a lot of people been questioning about the Far From Home thing. A lot of people like, so how does Far From Home take place? Like, is it before and after? I think Far From Home is before Infinity War, because what's going to end up happening is he's going to be at the end of Infinity War, not Infinity War, but at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. That's when he's going to get on that bus to come back. And that's when he sees the trouble that's happening in the city. And that's how it's going to end. That's what I think is going to happen, which will lead him coming back in Endgame. They're all going to be coming back. If they don't come back, then it makes no sense for their movies unless Black Panther, not Black Panther, but Guardians of the Galaxy, if they do a movie, it's got to be before Infinity War. If Black Panther has his movie, it's got to be before Infinity War, unless they all bring back an Endgame. So that's my only really reference. But anyways, it's called 9 Secrets That Reveal a Time Jump in the Avengers Endgame. There's going to be a crazy time jump. I know. I don't want to keep talking because there's a lot of stuff that you guys need to hear. And I need to hear. Give it a like. Here we go.
2019's Avengers Endgame will deal with the effects of Thanos' finger snap, the decimation in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. While we fully expect to see at least some scenes in the immediate aftermath of the catastrophic cosmic event, there is a lot of evidence suggesting the majority of the movie will be set after a time jump from Avengers Infinity War. In this video, we'll look at some secrets that seem to reveal there will be a time jump in Avengers Endgame. Tony Stark's predicament. While we undoubtedly believe the majority of Avengers Endgame will be set sometime after Tony Stark arrives back on Earth, there is every reason to believe even his scenes on board the spaceship, as seen in the trailer, were set quite a long time after the decimation. In said trailer, Stark talks about the fact that he's run out of both food and water, and about the fact that oxygen is on the verge of running out as well, and given he's in the Benatar, the Guardians of the Galaxy ship, which would surely have been stocked to keep 6 people alive for a prolonged period of time. He also talks about the fact that he's adrift in space, which would suggest he's a long way from anywhere that might be inhabitable, including Titan, where his journey home began. And to be that far from his place of departure certainly indicates he's been traveling for a while. Of course, the idea he doesn't look too disheveled contradicts that idea somewhat. Stark's hair is tidy and still quite short. His beard isn't overgrown and he looks generally clean, but it could just be the magic of the movies in action. It wouldn't be the first time an A-list actor looks how we wished we looked every day, even though they should look disgusting given their predicament. All things considered, at least a few weeks seem to have passed since the events of Avengers Infinity War, but based on the evidence, we'd wager it's probably been even longer. The Missing Gallery. The Avengers Endgame trailer briefly showed how the surviving heroes of the MCU are dealing with the aftermath of the decimation, and as expect, they're all looking very downbeat about the whole thing. In one scene, we see Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner looking at a holographic gallery that shows some of the characters who were missing since Thanos snapped his fingers and wiped out half of all life in the universe. In the trailer, the 3 people on screen as part of that gallery were Scott Lang, Peter Parker, and Shuri. And while we're skeptical about whether or not Shuri's inclusion in said gallery is misdirection on Marvel Studios' part, one thing we're sure about is that compiling a gallery of missing characters would have taken some time. In order for the likes of Steve Rogers and the aforementioned Banner to establish the likes of Lang, Parker, and Shuri were missing, they would have had to attempt to find them first. The majority of Earth's heroes were in Wakanda when the snap occurred, and they'd have to travel the globe and search for the missing characters individually to confirm their statuses, then compile a database, and given the devastating nature of what happened, you have to imagine there was a grieving process before that search even began. All things considered, the fact that the Missing People Gallery even exists would suggest some time has passed since Avengers Infinity War.
That makes sense.
Clint Barton in Japan. One of the most exciting scenes in the Avengers Endgame trailer was the scene involving Jeremy Renner's Clint Barton. MCU audiences haven't seen the character since 2016's Captain America Civil War, when he fought alongside Steve Rogers on the anti-Sokovia Accords team. For a while now, rumors that Barton would return in the guise of Ronin rather than Hawkeye have been rife, and it looks as though those rumors will turn out to be true in Avengers Endgame. The scene in the trailer in which Barton appears shows him in what seems to be Japan, hooded and wielding a sword rather than a bow and arrow, and looking very much like his Ronin identity from the comic books. It's believed he'll have taken on this new guise as a result of his entire family falling victim to the decimation, and it remains to be seen whether or not he can be convinced to rejoin the heroic fight alongside his former Avengers colleagues in an attempt to undo what Thanos did. There are a number of victims around Barton in the trailer, presumably members of the Yakuza, so he's obviously a lot more ruthless than he used to be, which would undoubtedly make him a formidable ally. If he's too far gone, which would be understandable if his wife and kids turn to dust before his eyes, it would be a real shame, though we suspect he'll be ready to fight. Natasha Romanoff's
That's
hair.
what I was.
Natasha
I was
Romanoff
just
is
about to say something about that. I was just about to say it, but I'm gonna let them say it.
Prominent character in the Avengers Endgame trailer, and for the most part she has hair very similar to what she had in Avengers Infinity War. However, in one scene her hair appears to have changed, which has prompted a lot of people to suggest it takes place a long time after the events of the 2018 movie. The scene in question is the one that shows Clint Barton in Japan as a solemn-looking Romanoff confronts her longtime friend. People are saying her hair is a darker color than her previous shade of blonde, and that it's tied back in a way that wouldn't be possible with the previous bob. Therefore, it must have grown significantly, and we can kind of see it, even if it is reaching a little. The theory, therefore, is the scenes in the trailer in which Romanoff's hair hasn't changed may take place before the title screen of Avengers Endgame, before a time jump occurs that sees the rest of the movie take place several months after Thanos' infamous finger snap. If indeed this is the case, and Romanoff recruits Barton long after the snap happens, it would suggest he's recruited as a last resort to help save the day, becoming an integral part of the fight back against the Mad Titan. No battle scars. One of the most telling signs there's been a time jump in Avengers Endgame is that none of the characters who fought against Thanos in Avengers Infinity War are bearing any visible wounds in the trailer. Steve Rogers, for example, took on Thanos' army of Outriders, the blade-wielding Corvus Glaive, and even took a punch to the face from the Mad Titan himself. And the fist to the face would surely leave a mark. The fact that he looks as pristine as Chris Evans himself in the trailer is very telling, but the character who has most obviously been healing for quite some time is none other than Tony Stark. Stark took an absolute pounding at the hands of Thanos on Titan, which of course ended with him being stabbed through the stomach with a blade of his own creation. He had cuts on his face and blood coming out of his mouth, but the Avengers Endgame trailer doesn't show him as having any lingering injuries at all as he floats aimlessly through space. The same goes for both Bruce Banner and Natasha Romanoff. There's not a mark on them, and for that to be the case after what they went through in Infinity War, they simply must have had a significant amount of time to heal. If the movie was taking place immediately after Infinity War, at the very least some characters would have stitches or band-aids on. Others might even be in the hospital. The plan. In the Avengers Endgame trailer, there's an interaction between Steve Rogers and Natasha Romanoff which suggests the surviving heroes of the MCU have a plan ready to either get back at Thanos or undo what he did in Avengers Infinity War. Romanoff tells Rogers that it's gonna work, and Rogers replies that he knows it is because he doesn't know what he's gonna do if it doesn't. The fact that they've had time to coordinate any kind of offensive would certainly suggest some time has passed since Thanos snapped his fingers and wiped out half of all life in the universe, which of course included half of their friends. When the decimation occurred, the heroes were not only physically battered, they would also have been mentally devastated over what happened. Not only because they lost friends and allies, but because they were unable to prevent it. Whether they're talking about a plan to go back in time and prevent Thanos from ever collecting the Infinity Stones, or a completely different plan that they come up with before they realize that's even an option, it's not something they would have started planning immediately after Infinity War, and nor is it something they would have come up with in a short amount of time. Essentially, we've got to think they've been planning whatever it is for quite some time, and we're very excited to find out what exactly it is. Time technology. The first piece of evidence that's not from the trailer that suggests there'll be a time jump in Avengers Endgame comes from some on-set photographs that started circulating a few months ago. They show characters like Steve Rogers and Loki at the Battle of New York from 2012's Avengers movie, and they're wearing the same costumes they were wearing in that movie, which suggests that past events will be revisited in Avengers Endgame. More to the point, Paul Rudd's Scott Lang is there in his Ant-Man gear, and he wasn't there at all the first time around. In fact, he was still 3 years away from even becoming Ant-Man. This suggests some characters will be traveling back in time to key points in MCU history in order to undo Thanos' actions and prevent him from ever collecting the Infinity Stones. And the means by which they'll do so seem to be in the set photos. All of the heroes in said photos appear to be wearing the same piece of unidentified technology on their wrists and hands. And the theory going around is that it's time travel tech. That kind of thing doesn't just appear overnight, even in a world full of tech geniuses. It suggests, therefore, that the surviving Avengers have been working on it for quite some time, long after the end of Avengers Infinity War. Perhaps more specifically, since Scott Lang reappeared in the scene in the Avengers Endgame trailer and told them that time travel was actually possible. Tony Stark's appearance. The next piece of evidence suggesting there'll be a time jump in Avengers Endgame that comes from an on-set photograph comes in the form of Tony Stark's appearance. In those same photos in which Scott Lang was seen at the Battle of New York, and what we believe to be time travel technology is being worn by every hero present, Stark's hair is noticeably different for starters. It's both longer than it usually is and a different color. It's a mousy shade of blonde. Given that we know Stark's hair wasn't like that in 2012's Avengers movie, we have to assume this is a future version of Stark who's traveled back in time. And for it to be a future version of Stark, a lot of time must have passed in order for him to have changed his appearance and for time travel technology to have been developed. Moreover, in the same photos in which Stark's hair is changed, he appears to be wearing SHIELD gear. So could it be that after the events of Avengers Infinity War, some time passed, Stark became the new director of SHIELD, changed his appearance, then headed back to 2012 once time travel technology became a thing in the MCU? Well, it certainly looks that way. Then again, some people have suggested those set photos came from scenes that were artificially induced by Stark's barf technology. So we do accept that we might be way off the mark with these ideas. Scott Lang has escaped. The big zinger in the Avengers Endgame trailer was the reveal that Scott Lang had escaped the Quantum Realm, where he was last seen stranded at the end of 2018's Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's believed Lang will have escaped via a time vortex, which Janet Van Dyne told him not to do. And for that reason, we have to think a fair amount of time has passed. You have to imagine Lang wouldn't have immediately done exactly what he was told not to do upon realizing he was stuck there. Surely he will have waited a while to see if Janet, Hank Pym, and Hope Van Dyne were going to pull him out. In fact, Van Dyne didn't even hint that the time vortexes were a route out of the quantum realm. She simply said that if he got sucked into one, they wouldn't be able to save him. Moreover, Steve Rogers and Natasha Romanoff seemed shocked when they saw Lang, meaning enough time must have passed for Lang to have officially been declared missing. Of course, those scenes show Romanoff with the same hair she had in Avengers Infinity War, but that could be misdirection on Marvel's part, as could quite a lot of what we saw in the trailer, quite frankly. Or an even more simple explanation is that a lot of time has passed by that point, but not as much time as in the scenes in which Romanoff has new hair. It's not that complicated, really. So what do you think will happen in Avengers Endgame? That's a good question,
because Marvel always makes their trailers seem... They put a lot of stuff in their trailers to make it seem that it's that way when it's really not. Because, let's be honest, from the trailers, her hair could be short in those beginning. Her hair could be short in that beginning, but in the actual movie, it's really long. That could be one of the like misdemeanors. Like they always like change stuff to make it look like it's not the way it is. When Thanos was in Wakanda, in the trailer, he didn't have but like a couple Infinity Stones, when we know he had like, I think the 6 Infinity Stones, he had like 5, and he was trying to get the last one. So in the trailers, they kind of take those things out, so you guys don't know like what's gonna really happen. And I'm very interested to see what's gonna happen, to be honest. Hopefully the time travel stuff isn't Stark's like technology what he used inside of Civil War to make it look like it, you know, was happening, but it really wasn't. I really do hope they time travel to fix some mistakes. That could be one of the reasons why Cap shaved his beard, so he can time travel and fit in. But from the set, it does make sense that Tony could be the new head of SHIELD. just the fact that he's wearing the jacket and he has a different look. Now, I don't know how the time travel and stuff is going to work. Like, what are they going to do? How are they going to stop a low-key? Are they going to just destroy all the Infinity Stones? Like, but my biggest theory for sacrifice, the one person that's really going to sacrifice, I think the one person that's really going to sacrifice is Captain America. I think it's going to end, not the movie, but it's going to be a part of the movie where he's going to sacrifice himself, and instead of him being frozen in ice, he's actually going to possibly destroy. I think he's going to go back in time and stay there, and he's just going to die throughout the years. I don't think he's going to I don't know, because I think he's going to die, but I feel like he's going to travel back to where he was before and just live out his life. I don't know. I have that thought. I think Cap's going to die in the movie if that doesn't happen. I don't see Tony dying. I see another Iron Man movie. I really do. I like Iron Man movies. I liked all of them, even though the third one wasn't as good as the other ones. I did like all the Iron Man movies. Let me know down below your theories, and I will see you guys in the next video. Post Renation around. Deuces. One love, peace. Catch you guys later. Stay subscribed, stay blessed. I'm out. See ya.